I told my husband he wasn't as ambitious as my ex. Not just told, I weaponized it. I aimed right at his deepest wound, the career he'd been struggling for years to build while I pretended not to notice. He packed a bag, kissed our daughter goodbye, and walked out, leaving behind a cold casserole, a silent house, and a wife who finally realized what she destroyed. I'm Riley, 32, and only now, after losing him, do I truly understand what it means to support your husband. I remember the first time I saw Michael's friend request on Facebook. It felt like the most innocent thing in the world. I hadn't heard from him in years. A simple, hey, how's it going? And suddenly I was dragged back into his orbit. He was Mr. Perfect Gentleman, always respectful, always kind, always polite, complimenting our family photos, asking about Arnold, even trying to befriend him. I thought, how nice, right? Most exes are toxic. Michael wasn't. Isn't that great? I gushed to Arnold one night, scrolling through his profile. Most exes are toxic. He's different. Arnold's jaw tightened. He stared at the screen, eyes narrowing. It feels performative, Riley, like he's everywhere. I rolled my eyes. Paranoid much? He's successful, driven. Maybe you're just intimidated. But deep down, I knew he had a point. Michael was everywhere. I started checking his profile obsessively. His photos from galas, the business trips to Europe, the charity events. His life was shiny and glamorous. Everything about it screamed success. Meanwhile, Arnold, my husband, the father of our daughter, was comfortable, predictable, stable, yes, but stable in the most beige way possible. Managing accounts, making dinner, helping with homework, a life of routine, and suddenly I realized how dull that felt. Michael's life was a whirlwind, a constant rush of excitement. When Arnold started to voice his concerns, I dismissed them. You're lucky he's even trying, I snapped one evening. Most guys would kill for an ex this respectful. His insecurity was baffling to me. It was almost pathetic. But what I wasn't saying, what I wasn't admitting to myself, was how excited I got when Michael's name popped up on my phone. How I dress a little nicer, just in case I accidentally ran into him at the grocery store or Starbucks. I'd catch myself looking at his photos for way too long, wondering how it would feel to be that young, that successful again. Michael was everything I hadn't realized I missed. And it wasn't about him, was it? It was about everything he represented. And yet I told myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I convinced myself that I held the extinguisher, that I was in control, but I wasn't. I was playing with fire. And then Michael did what Michael always did. He infiltrated our lives like a charming ivy vine, joining our neighborhood Facebook group, accidentally, running into me at Starbucks, sending Arnold golf invites that went unanswered. It felt like he was here, in our little world, at all times. Arnold started noticing everything. You light up when his name appears, Arnold said one night, his voice quieter than usual. It was like a low hum in the air, vibrating with something dark I didn't want to face. You drop everything for his texts, even when Lily's talking to you. I blinked, stung by the truth. He was right. Every time Michael texted, it was like the world paused. Arnold kept going. You've been comparing us. Michael's promotion versus my job, his tailored suits versus my khakis. It's constant, Riley, I snapped. Maybe if you gave me something exciting to talk about. The words felt sharp, ugly, and I regretted them the moment they left my mouth. Sorry my ex actually did something with his life. That did it. That was the moment I knew I'd crossed a line. The next few weeks were a blur of tension, quiet dinners, and strained conversations. Arnold started hitting the gym, working late, and becoming distant in ways I couldn't ignore. But instead of reaching for him, I pushed harder. I wanted him to fight for me. I wanted him to do something dramatic, something big. I was convinced he just didn't care enough. If he really loved me, he'd fight. And then, it happened. Michael posted about needing a +1 for a charity gala. I commented a little too eagerly, a little too flirtatiously, "Wish I could help." Arnold didn't take it well. "Boundaries, Riley." He stood in the living room, his voice shaking with frustration. "How would you feel if I acted this way with my ex?" I scoffed. "Katie, who sells essential oils and gained 50 pounds, please. Michael's in a different league. Successful, mature?" I trailed off, catching the hurt flashing in Arnold's eyes before he shuttered it. His face went blank, and without a word he walked out of the room. I stood there, staring after him, feeling a strange mix of anger and guilt. What did I do? I couldn't figure it out. He was overreacting. He had to be. My best friend Sarah tried to warn me when we were drinking wine a few days later. Are you sure this is just Arnold being insecure? She paused, watching me with those piercing eyes of hers. Because... I cut her off, a little too harshly. Because what? I chose Arnold. If he can't handle a friendship, that's his problem. But I could see the doubt in Sarah's eyes, the way she didn't buy what I was saying. She wasn't the only one. Arnold's increasing distance, the quiet whispers between our friends, all the subtle signs, they were starting to pile up. And instead of stepping back and reevaluating, I doubled down. I pushed harder, thinking if I could just make Arnold see how perfect Michael was, maybe he'd change, maybe he'd step up. But I wasn't getting what I wanted. I wasn't seeing what I needed. I was already losing him, and I didn't even know it. The neighborhood barbecue, our annual tradition. Arnold grilling, me with my potato salad. This year, Michael was there, invited by Arnold. They were talking sports, laughing easily. It felt staged, wrong. Fueled by too much Chardonnay and a simmering resentment at Arnold's newfound camaraderie with my ex, I jumped into a conversation about awkward run-ins. Honestly, I love how mature Michael and I are, I announced loudly, turning to Michael. We're actual friends. The patio chatter died. Arnold stared into his beer. Michael shifted, looking uncomfortable. Then Arnold spoke, his voice quiet but carrying in the sudden silence. Yeah, especially when one of you is still desperately in love with the other. The air crackled. Excuse me? My voice was dangerously low. You heard me, Riley. His eyes, usually soft, were hard. We all see it. Every fawning post, every accidental meeting, every comparison. You practically drool when he walks into a room. You're not subtle. Something inside me snapped. Fine. He wanted a scene? He'd get one. Oh, you want to go there? Fine. You want to know what everyone really sees? They see how Michael is bigger than you in every single way. My voice rose, sharp and cruel. Let's break it down. Salary? He makes triple what you do shuffling papers. House? Penthouse downtown versus dreaming of a leaky above-ground pool. Ambition? He built a career. You found a comfortable rut. Charisma? People actually like being around him. Hell, even his hands look better than yours. Arnold just sat there, his face pale, a muscle twitching in his jaw. His lack of reaction infuriated me. What's wrong, Arnold? Isn't this the honesty you crave? Should I mention how much bigger his confidence is, his drive, his accomplishments? I leaned in, my voice dripping venom. Tell me I'm lying. Oh wait, you can't, because everyone here knows it's true. Michael is bigger, better, more in every conceivable way. And yes, I added, lowering my voice to a conspiratorial whisper that carried anyway, probably in the other way too. A collective gasp went through the small crowd. Sarah whispered, Riley, stop! Karen shielded her kids' ears. Michael looked physically ill. Arnold stood slowly. He didn't say a word. He just took a visibly shaken Lily by the hand and walked towards our house, away from the wreckage I'd made. What? I yelled after his retreating back, desperate for a reaction, any reaction. You wanted the truth, at least Michael could handle it. The party disintegrated. Whispers followed me. Brutal. Poor Arnold. I can't believe she said that. Alone in the quiet house later, the wine wearing off, a sliver of unease pierced my anger. I texted Michael. Need coffee. Someone who gets it. His reply hit like ice water. I think we need to establish some boundaries, Riley. We met at the diner, the same cozy spot where we used to spend hours just talking, letting the world fade away around us. It had been a while since we'd sat here together, but the familiarity of the place made it feel like no time had passed. Michael sat down across from me, his expression cautious, probably unsure of what to expect. I didn't give him a chance to speak before I dove in, frustration bubbling over like a pot left on the stove for too long. Arnold's being insane, I said, my voice sharp with annoyance, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. He's pushed me to the edge, and now I'm the one who's left to pick up the pieces. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I reached for his hand, desperate for him to understand, for him to see how right I was in all of this. I needed his validation, needed someone to tell me I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't the one in the wrong. You understand me, don't you? I asked, my voice quieter now, filled with a mix of hope and vulnerability. I stared at his face, searching his eyes for some sign of agreement, for a reassurance that maybe, just maybe, I hadn't completely lost my mind. Michael pulled back sharply. Stop, Riley. His voice was flat, devoid of its usual charm. You humiliated your husband, publicly, savagely. He deserved— No, Michael cut me off. He didn't. And honestly, I feel partly responsible. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Look, I enjoyed the attention, okay? It was an ego boost, seeing you still hung up after all these years. Maybe I leaned into it too much, played the perfect ex because it felt good. He looked me straight in the eye. But I never wanted this. I never intended to wreck your marriage. Seeing you tear down Arnold like that, it showed me a side of you I don't like. You weren't really interested in me, Riley. You were interested in the idea of me, the one that got away, the stick you could use to beat your husband with. I was just a prop in your drama. My throat closed. What are you saying? I'm saying I'm done being your ego boost or your escape plan. Fix your marriage, or don't, but leave me out of it. What you did tonight, that wasn't about friendship, that was cruelty. He stood, dropping cash on the table. You weren't chasing me, Riley. You were running from appreciating what you had. He walked out, leaving me stunned and alone under the harsh fluorescent lights. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. The truth hit me like a freight train, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Sarah was right. I'd tried to convince myself that everything I'd done, every choice, every word, had been justified. But now, hearing it from her, it felt like I'd been living in a lie. You've lost both of them, Riley. Sarah's words echoed in my mind. Michael's gone. Arnold's gone. You lost everything. I wanted to scream, to tell her she didn't understand. She wasn't in my shoes. She didn't know what it was like to feel invisible, to crave something more than what you already had. But even as the words formed in my throat, I realized it wouldn't change anything. I'd burned the bridges with both of them, and no amount of defending myself could fix it now. I looked down at the floor, my fingers trembling as I grabbed the edge of the coffee table. I couldn't bring myself to look Sarah in the eye. Instead, I muttered, barely above a whisper, I just wanted to feel alive again. Sarah's expression softened even more, but it wasn't sympathy, it was concern. Riley, that's not living. That's destruction. What you did wasn't about living. It was about trying to fill a hole that wasn't about Arnold or Michael. It's about you. You're the one who needs to face this. I shook my head, but it felt like a lost cause. What had I really done? Sarah sighed, and I could see she was trying to find the right words. Do you really think Arnold would have been happy with you if he'd changed into the person you wanted? If he'd started working harder, dressing differently, doing all the things you wanted him to? Would that have been enough? My stomach twisted. I don't know, I muttered, my voice shaking. Because, she continued, you're never going to be happy with someone else until you're happy with yourself. You can't keep tearing people down to build yourself up. You can't keep using them to get validation. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she didn't understand. That maybe Arnold wasn't enough for me. That maybe Michael was the answer. Or that maybe neither of them had been. But I didn't. I was too exhausted to fight. The weight of everything, all the mistakes I'd made, all the hurt I'd caused, crashed down on me all at once. What have I become? I sank down onto the couch, my face in my hands. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I'd lost everything. And not just Arnold, not just Michael, but myself too. Who was I even now? The woman who tore her family apart to prove a point, or the woman who was so desperate for approval that she let it all slip away? I don't know what to do anymore, I whispered, my voice barely audible. Sarah knelt down beside me, her hand resting gently on my shoulder. You start by facing what you've done. Then you start by forgiving yourself. I shook my head. How can I forgive myself? I've ruined everything. You can start by acknowledging it, she said softly, her voice steady. And then you fix it. You own up to it, and you make amends. Not to Michael, not to Arnold, but to yourself. You can rebuild, Riley. It's not over, but you have to stop pretending it's not your fault. I let out a shaky breath, my head still spinning. The world felt upside down, and I didn't know where to go from here. But for the first time, I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was hope. Not for Michael or Arnold, but for me. I wiped my eyes, the tears stinging but clearing away the fog. It wasn't going to be easy, but I couldn't keep hiding. I had to fix this. And the first step? Admitting I was the one who destroyed it all. I have a long way to go, I whispered, more to myself than to Sarah. She gave me a soft smile, squeezing my shoulder. We all do, Riley, but the first step is always the hardest. And maybe, just maybe, it was time to take that first step. I stared at the floor. How did I get here? I didn't know how to answer, so instead, I said nothing. Sarah sighed deeply, shaking her head. Look, Riley, I don't even know how to help you anymore. You need to stop playing the victim and start taking responsibility for what you did. She turned to leave but stopped at the door, giving me one last heavy look. You destroyed your family to prove a point, and now you're left with nothing. And there it was, the truth. It hit me like a slap. I did it to prove a point. I had been so caught up in showing Michael I was still worth something, in showing Arnold that I was deserving of excitement and passion, that I forgot about the only person who truly mattered in all of this. Me. But I couldn't admit that to Sarah. I couldn't say it out loud. So, instead of breaking down in front of her, I just nodded, a slow, empty gesture, as if to say I heard her. But I didn't want to. Not really. She left, and the silence in the house was deafening. I opened Facebook again, scrolling through the comments I'd received on my last post. They were all from people I barely knew, motivational quotes, vague likes. But none of them felt real. None of them made me feel better. The more I scrolled, the emptier I felt. I posted something else. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. I didn't even believe it. I was just trying to hold on to something, to make the chaos around me feel like it had some kind of meaning, but the more I posted, the more I realized. I was only spiraling further. Arnold had already moved on. He didn't need me anymore. He didn't even want to talk to me. And Michael? He didn't want anything to do with me either. I was alone. I closed my phone and threw it on the couch, the weight of my own self-deception too heavy to ignore any longer. I wasn't just a victim of Arnold's neglect. I wasn't just a victim of Michael's charm. I was a victim of my own damn choices. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the woman I used to be, and I wasn't sure I even knew who that was anymore. And that was the real consequence. The real twist wasn't just losing Michael, it was watching Arnold thrive. And honestly, it stung in a way I wasn't prepared for. I thought he'd crumble. I thought I'd see him fall apart, broken by the humiliation I'd put him through. But instead, something shifted in him. The humiliation seemed to forge him into something better. He didn't fall to pieces. He rebuilt. Arnold threw himself into his work like it was the only thing that mattered now. And apparently it did. He got a major promotion, one that put him on the fast track at his firm. And then the changes started. It was subtle at first, a new suit here, a new haircut there. But before long, it wasn't just his career that was changing. He was hitting the gym every morning, shedding pounds like they were the weight of my cruelty. He started getting sharp haircuts that made him look good. Not just the guy who worked behind a desk, but a man who knew what he wanted and wasn't afraid to get it. He wasn't the man I left anymore. He was someone else. I watched from a distance, pretending not to care, as he bought a modern house in that trendy new neighborhood, the one with the best schools. It was the kind of house that made me sick with envy, the kind I'd always wanted for us, but never fought hard enough for. And then came Emma. Emma. The woman he started dating was everything I wasn't. She was serene, calm, effortlessly beautiful, a yoga instructor, so much more zen than me. I didn't expect to feel anything when I heard about her, but when Lily told me, it felt like a sucker punch to the gut. She makes pancakes and helps with homework, Mommy, Lily chirped one afternoon during one of our court-mandated supervised visits. She said it so casually, like she was just telling me what color the sky was, like it was normal for another woman to step into my place. I didn't even know how to respond. My daughter, the little girl I had tried so hard to protect, was already being pulled into this new version of our life. The version where I wasn't needed, supervised. That was how I got to see my daughter now. After everything, the barbecue, the online posts, the emotional chaos I dragged everyone into, I was considered unstable. The court ruled that I needed supervision to even spend time with her. Arnold had made sure of that. But what really cut deep? What truly shredded me in a way I couldn't ignore? My lawyer, later revealed that Arnold hadn't been blindsided by anything. In fact, he had been quietly documenting everything for months. My texts, my posts, my obsessive need to compare him to Michael. All of it. He had collected it like evidence, preparing for the moment he'd need it. The barbecue wasn't just a spontaneous meltdown on my part, it was the final piece of the puzzle. The moment Arnold could prove I was emotionally unstable and unfit. And I had handed it to him on a silver platter. I'd wanted him to fight for me. I thought that by humiliating him in front of everyone, I could force him to see what I wanted, to make him feel the pain I was feeling. But all it did was give him the ammunition he needed to walk away from me without a second thought. I never thought I'd see the day, my lawyer had said when I got the news. But Arnold's ready for a clean break, Riley. He's been documenting everything, and he's got the evidence to prove it. The weight of it hit me like a freight train. The proof wasn't just in the papers. It was in every post, every conversation, every small act of betrayal. Arnold had seen me unravel long before I'd even realized it myself. He'd been patient, he'd been quiet, he'd been letting me destroy everything, and I had no one to blame but myself. Arnold was no longer the man I married. He was someone else entirely, someone stronger, more successful, and more at peace than I had ever been. And I was left in the rubble of everything I had broken, with nothing but my own shame and regret. I couldn't undo what I'd done. I couldn't fix it. But somehow, as I sat there alone in my apartment, scrolling through my phone, I knew one thing for sure. I had lost everything. And watching Arnold win, watching him rebuild his life and his happiness, felt like a punishment I would have to live with for the rest of my life. Now, here I am in this cramped apartment, struggling to make ends meet, the child support barely covering rent, while Arnold and Emma flaunt their perfect lives on social media. Their photos scream happiness, disgustingly happy. Michael, too, is doing fine, posting CrossFit selfies with his new model girlfriend like he's living the dream. Me? My online reputation is in tatters. Every date I go on, I'm Googled and ghosted. Even my mother sighs about how lucky Lily is to have Emma. And my therapist? She talks about patterns and accountability. But what's there to fix when the damage is done? I keep telling myself that I pushed Arnold to be better, that my cruelty was motivation. If only he'd been this version of himself. Confident, successful, assertive, maybe I wouldn't have looked back. I saw them at Lily's school conference last week. Arnold stood tall, not physically, but solid, self-assured. He met my gaze without flinching, and Emma gave me that polite, pitying smile. It was then that it hit me. Arnold wasn't the man I left. He was the man I created by tearing him down. I thought I wanted Michael. I thought I wanted something more, something better. But in reality, I didn't lose Arnold because of love. I lost him because I couldn't stand him not being Michael. I lost Michael because he saw through me. I lost myself in the comparisons, and somewhere along the way, I became someone I didn't even recognize. I've been told I need to work on myself. Maybe they're right. Maybe, just maybe, as I sit here scrolling through their perfect lives at 2 a.m. from my lonely apartment, I can admit it. I wasn't just brutally honest. I was cruel, and I didn't just lose my husband. I detonated my entire life. And the worst part? I have no one to blame but myself. No one, not even Arnold. But I'd never say that out loud. Not to anyone. Because even now, I'm still too scared to face the truth that, deep down, I know.